Okay, it is time. Welcome to APAMEI monthly forum for higher education, and our topic is the education in the post-pandemic world. I want to invite our president of APAMEI, Dr. Flo Miranda, and to do the welcome and also introduction of the speakers today.
Thank you, Dr. Yang Min. Welcome everyone to another exciting session of the Asia-Pacific Association of Methodist-related educational institutions. But before we start, let's bow our head and pray. Our loving God, source of light and wisdom, thank you for the opportunity that you are giving us today for us to be able to discuss something which has become debatable, which is also a source of inspiration to us, although others have met this one with skepticism. Lord, we praise and thank you for the presence of our speakers who will help us see the light forward, will help us discern the relevance of this new technology. Bless this session, bless all the participants, and we look forward to your Holy Spirit to guide us as we move forward to embrace this technology with the hope that everything that we will do will give you back all honor and glory. Amen. Thank you so much once again for being present today. I appreciate the presence of some educators that I know, and I've seen them in the Zoom today. And we are so thankful to our speakers this morning who really are giving us the light or wisdom in relation to what we now call ChatGPT. The first speaker is the Executive Director of the Regional Hub South Korea, and also a board member of the Asia-Pacific Association of Methodist-related Educational Institution and a professor of Yonsei University, South Korea. I'm referring to Dr. Yang Min Paik. And our next speaker is the Vice Chancellor of Aoyama Gakuin University, also a member of the research team of the Institute for Technological and Social Transformation of Aoyama Gakuin University. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'll giving the floor to our two speakers. A big hand for our speakers this morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Flo, for the nice presentation and the introduction. Yes, as you saw, and we're going to cover, very interesting topic today, and which is very hot, and which I'm going to talk about. And we will have the two parts. The first, I'm going to cover, read the topic of understanding the real face of ChatGPT. And then Dr. Xu will cover is challenges and opportunities, especially within the higher education domain. And that is something we are trying to do. So before we start, I want to talk about this one, introducing myself. I'm not AI expert, okay? And I'm not even the scientist, I'm theologian. And that is why, the talk about this ChatGPT might not be the best scientific illustration of what's going on within this topic. But from the perspective of the educator and from the perspective of the just common people, okay, using this one, and I was interested in understanding what's going on with it and to understand how we can use it and also how we can prevent a lot of dangers or problems possibly caused by these things. And that is why I prepared this one. So please keep that in mind and then listen my presentation. Yes, I want to talk about ChatGPT, and let's talk about this one. Just this month, February 16th of 2023, Time magazine, selected this cover. This is it. It's about ChatGPT. Only last week, they put the main cover of their magazine with what's going on within ChatGPT with this very interesting topic of it. The AI arms race is changing everything. I read an article, and that was a very interesting article, And they are trying to explain, how many companies are trying to make this one happen and how it will affect us. From the article, they were using this interesting picture. Let me show you. So this is the picture. What does it look like? To me, it is more like Pandora's box. So we are opening up. Something great might change our future and our whole realm of education. And that is why they put the title like this one. AI system is changing everything. We are in the very beginning stage of this AI revolution, and ChatGPT is kind of opening doorstep for this age. So this is very crucial issue, and that is making the big impact among us. Let me show you very interesting the statistics also. And this is showing how much time needed to reach 100 million users by month. You can see this one. There is the Google, Uber, Twitter, and the Instagram, and many of them to reach 100 million users. They took from the 70 months, that means almost, over like 6 years. And some of them, took several years, but ChatGPT only used 2 months to reach the 10 million users. And also, it is interesting to reach only 1 million users. ChatGPT needed only 5 days. So that means, this is the big phenomenon now going on in the whole world. How many people are using ChatGPT right now? Because it came out in the December of 2022, only less than 3 months ago. Now, people say 1.5 billion people are using this ChatGPT now. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, and I bet a lot of students are very familiar with that already. Because interestingly, I taught the winter intensive course at Yonsei University, and when I check, my final exam paper, and which was the open, the exam, and that was why they could use any things, to get ready for their answers. And I found out several of the answers from my final exam, and they used the ChatGPT. And I could notice that. Anyway, ChatGPT is a program you can run on your iPhone or other smartphones, and also you can use within your computer. So let me explain what is ChatGPT. Actually, I was thinking about, where can I get the best answer for this one? Then I thought about ChatGPT is the best way to find the best answers. So I asked the ChatGPT about what is ChatGPT in one sentence. And this is the answer. Let me read this one for you. ChatGPT is a large language model, and we're going to use LLM, created by OpenAI, and which is the company who made it, that can engage in natural language conversation with users on a wide range of topics. So this is the formal answer. Then I thought about maybe, there are too many heavy loaded terms out there. And so, I asked the ChatGPT in a different way, and I asked this one, explain it to the 10-year-old. Then they give this answer, and which will be a little easier. ChatGPT is a computer program that can understand and talk to people using words like we do. It's very smart and can help answer questions or even tell stories. Interesting, right? So they understand what it means and they are able to change the text easier for the younger people. Then I was curious about maybe let me push this one a little harder. And that is why, make it easier even. Then they give this answer. This is from ChatGPT. ChatGPT is like a talking robot that can understand what we say and answer our questions. It is like having a really smart friend who can tell you lots of interesting things. What do you think? Yes, ChatGPT is the computer program we can use to find a lot of answers. And it is very effective and very smart, and it almost covers every topic we can think of. I'm a theologian from the very social, religious, theological stuff into the very advanced scientific discoveries. ChatGPT is the program developed by OpenAI. OpenAI is actually, as the name says, it is the open and like non-professional and profitable organization or company who are trying to make this AI system. And because AI can be used by very heavy people with a lot of money and a lot of power. But when the ChatGPT and OpenAI was short of their fund because they cost a lot of it, and several $billion is needed to make this one happen. That's why they made a certain contact with Microsoft, and now Microsoft has the exclusive copyright to use this ChatGPT, and that is why a lot of people are thinking that Microsoft invented this one, but that is not true. And they are using the OpenAI. The company is making a lot of other system based on this AI system we call the GPT. ChatGPT is the chatting program of it based on the GPT-3 system. And they have the DALL-E, which is the program generating a lot of pictures. When you put something you want, about your picture, they're going to generate the picture. Codex is the coding program in the same purpose, and the Whisper is the speech, the technique. So if you are putting a lot of things, they're going to generate the great speech for you. So this OpenAI system we call the GPT can be applied into many different programs, okay, we can think of, to generate picture, to generate chat, to generate codecs, and to generate speech even. So it could be used in many different ways. People are talking about this one because ChatGPT is now exclusively used by the Microsoft, because OpenAI and Microsoft has the big funding, the agreement. And that is why on the other side, there are the Google, and actually OpenAI use a lot of Google program and the system, to develop, this GPT system. But Google is also following this kind of program now. And there is called the BARD, and which is the Google's form of AI, like the OpenAI system. As you know, also the Facebook, now Meta, is also developing this one. And the Time magazine article is describing they are at war, to develop this one and to prove, their things are better. To understand ChatGPT, I think we need to understand this one a little bit better, I think, with this thing. How it is possible. And maybe let me explain this way. A lot of people and generate this way. And simply saying, okay, ChatGPT is available because they are using the supercomputer. Supercomputer is kind of like million times better than our own computer we are using. We never use this supercomputer within our hands. So far, a lot of people are saying that this is the first experience of the public to use this supercomputer and how great and how powerful it could be. They are using the one computer chip, which is called the NVIDIA, which is the great, chip, the computer chip producing company, and GPU, graphic design, the graphic card, the unit, which is more like an Intel, like computer chip. And then they are using the system A100. I don't know how to say even, and their ability to calculate thing is they are doing 2.5 quadrillion times per second. We cannot even imagine how it could be possible, okay? And they said that is 2,000 times faster than Intel i9-11900. I'm going to talk about that one. I asked this question to ChatGPT, and as you know, ChatGPT is based on the 2 years ago data. And that's why, this is the best, the computer chip available 2 years ago. That was why, they are giving this one. How many things, they are using? And to develop this OpenAI GPT system, they are thinking they were using the 10,000 to 25,000 A100 chips combined and used it together. You can imagine, we are using only one computer chip to run our computer, okay? And the best thing available, and this A100 chip is the 2,000 times better. And they were using 10 to 25,000 of these ones to make this one possible. Can you imagine this one? So we cannot understand all the calculation and the numbers, but let me tell you, we need to understand what kind of system it has. Now let's get into what is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is the abbreviation of Chat, G, generative, P, pre-trained, T, transformers. We had the GPT system long time ago, and they developed and updated that one. And people say they are using the 3.0 now, and some people say 3.5 now. These three topics of ChatGPT, very strange name, with generative pre-trained transformers has the very big meaning behind. And that's why to understand ChatGPT, if we understand these three words of GPT, and we can have a little sense, how it is working and how it's generating the many of things, we can see. So let me go one by one. So number one, ChatGPT of Chat is the chat model. So we are producing some of the conversation, okay? And that is now one-time answer. As you can see, when you get the answer, you can develop that chat, continuing that chat by pushing them and using it or using some other things, explaining more or something like that. So that could be the responsive. And that is the meaning of chat. Let me explain the G first. G is abbreviation of generative. They call the generative model, which is the big concept over here. Let me explain very simply about what it means. So ChatGPT is the generating program. How they gonna generate? They gonna self-generating, they have self-generating ability. They already have a lot of resources within them, and they're gonna use all the data they have and something they studied and learned, and they're gonna make self-generate out of that data. So something new might come out. In contrast to this model, we can find a lot of things we call AI was there, but most of them were very simple version, not generating version. That is more like find and show version. So if you put how is the weather in Seoul, Korea, and they're gonna look for some data and they're gonna show that data simply to them. That is the find and show model. But generating model is a lot more complex, and they are generating something new, and which is not existing within any of the internet world. And that is why the generative model is very interesting. They are also calling this one as the foundation model. Foundation model is trying to organize something existing and make some sequence to make sense for everyone. There is the critical things, we need to think. A lot of people are thinking they are generating, but that is not completely self-creating. They are using already existing data and existing word or the sentences. They are not making completely new, which we can, explain as a creating something. So that is the generative model means. Second, pre-trained, what does it mean? Pre-trained has a lot of meaning. This model of ChatGPT is not something they are making instantly out of nothing. They are already trained with a lot of things. I already said it, and let me explain this one. This is not the real-time search data. They cannot use it. They pre-trained with all the data up to 2022. So most updated level after 2022 is not available, and they are giving the wrong answer. For example, Korean election of the president happened 2022, right? End of 2021. And if you ask who is the current president of Korea, they are giving the wrong word because they never trained most updated the data in the world, in the internet. So you need to think about it. Okay, so that is one of the problem, it has, and we need to understand. This could be fixed pretty much. And because, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money and the energy, to train them. And that is why we are still using the little older version. More important thing is this one. In the very beginning of AI system, we were giving, humans are giving the criteria for them to decide which direction they need to go. For example, famous cat and dog distinction. And we need to put what is characteristic of cat and what is the characteristic of dog. And we're going to put maybe 20 different things, and then they're going to learn that and they're going to apply that one when they figure out this is the picture of cat or a picture of dog. But it was not that accurate. That is why, people were thinking, we need to develop the better program. And that means, we need to develop the human style of it. So rather than giving them all the things, we let them learn. That is what we call the deep learning process. That is very similar of our human being is, the understanding many things and learning many things. So we're gonna, rather than give the criteria, we're gonna give bunch of pictures of cat and dog and let them find out what could be the criteria. And they generate criteria, and then they apply that one two distinct, differentiate two things, and it was great and very powerful. Based on my understanding, ChatGPT, the GPT system, were trained with the 3 billion words and 5 trillion documents. That was the foundation of the GPT model over here. And also, together with that, they put we call the reinforcement learning from the human feedback. So human corrected, a lot of those things, and then provided a lot of good sample sentence and the document for them. And that was another level. And finally, human also corrected a lot of things because there has been some of the ethical error, and because they don't have that kind of ethical intention to it. And that's why there are the prompt corrector or computer scientists and who are fixing these answers of the GPT now. Final one is the transformer, which is the most important thing. We need to understand the meaning of this transformer model, which is the most updated AI model. But we need to understand also, I emphasize that one, this is not the creating model. That is not, they are not making something completely new. Then how they gonna make the very relevant and very powerful and correct answer? And this is the model. So they are able to make the attention, which is the big AI word. And attention means they can find the meaning and very significance and important word or pattern or system of the sentence, and they are able to use it. So they develop a lot of criteria which forms the sentence and generate the text. And using this one, and how they are making the sentence is this way. This is the most crucial part. They are organizing sentence with the word which could be best possible connecting word. So today the weather is sunny or rainy. And when it rains, people bring umbrella. So out of that huge, enormous text they learned, they are calculating that one and find the best possible connecting word into it and then making the sentence. So that is how the transformer works. So I'm trying to say this one very clearly, and something we need to understand is they are not creating completely new sentence. They are transforming existing sentences and the data to make it relevant to the question they get. And that is the things. And also they are very weak about what is the right information or wrong information, because they are trained and commanded to produce the most relevant data. Seems pretty correct for them. And that is why they are making a lot of mistakes also. Let me give one just example because my time is running out. Okay. And to ChatGPT, I was asking, what is APAMEI? And this is the organization of the Asia Pacific Association of the Methodist Educational Related School. And first answer was, sorry, I don't know what is, the APAMEI, but I pushed them. And they are trained to answer certain things. And that is why, what is APAMEI in Methodist education? And then, they were forced and they were giving the answer. And they said APAMEI stands for Association of Professors and Administrators of Methodist Educational Institution. This is completely wrong answer. And also I searched it and there is no association, something like this. They were pushed by me, and that is why they were trained to give certain answer, most relevant, make sensible answer. And then I give what is APAMEI in Asian Methodist Church, and finally they are giving the right answer. So more text was available, and for other things, and now when I give the specific question, and they were able to generate something correct answer. For sure, we'll talk about this one a lot. So let me close this one. Let me go back to this picture. Yes, now we are opening up very interesting box, which could change almost everything of our life. Then how are we going to get ready for it? We need to understand first. And that is why we are having this meeting together. So then what now? Where are we going to go? And we're going to continue this discussion with Dr. Hughes, the interesting topic, with navigating the challenges and opportunities of AI chatbot in higher education. Thanks for listening, and we will wait. I will wait for the discussion question later. Now I'm going to pass this leadership to Dr. Paul Shu from Japan, and I'm going to put it down so that he can use his PPT.
Okay. Thank you very much for your introduction to ChatGPT. And let me go ahead and share my screen. Just a second here. All right. It's coming up now. Okay, can everyone see the screen now? So I'm going to talk about navigating the challenges and opportunities of AI chatbots in higher education. And let me just start with a little profile of myself. I'll do a technological profile to give a little bit of my background. Because I have been working in this area for quite a while. First off, I started programming in the 1980s. After graduating from high school, I started working in IT before attending college. Then after I started in college, I continued working IT-related jobs part-time. That's how I paid for college and graduate school, actually. And then after I finished graduate school and I was ordained a minister, began working in higher education in Japan. And at the same time, I became a programmer with Moodle, one of the most widely used learning management systems in the world. It started about 2002 or so, and I was one of the early programmers with the quiz module. Then I became a system administrator for it from 2005 to 2015. I wrote about issues of e-learning and Christian education during that time. Then in 2018, I became a member of the Singularity Institute at APAMEI, and then later I became a member of the Institute for Technological and Social Transformation at APAMEI, because I'm very interested in how technology relates to education and how to use it best in education. I think it's very important for education. I've always used it. It's a very important topic for educators. And I have been interested in AI chatbots for some time, so I've used many of them, and I have never been impressed with them, to be honest. In about 2015, 2016, I remember Microsoft introduced a new chatbot to the world. Some of you may remember this. I think its name was Tay. It lasted less than a day because people started putting in terrible prompts, and it started coming out as with racist and Nazi statements. It was just totally unacceptable. They canceled it immediately. Microsoft has tried several times to introduce AI chatbots, and other companies have. And I've used some of them. Some of them have value. Actually, AI chatbots are used in many industries now. If you make a phone call to some places, you will be put onto an automated system, which is actually being run by an AI chatbot to help you. So, chatbots have been used in some limited applications, but there has never been a general use AI chatbot that has been really practically useful for people until now. When I think about the most impactful technologies on education, 1980s, the introduction of personal computers and the internet, that was big impact. The introduction of the World Wide Web, that happened when I was in college. I remember playing with Mosaic browser when it came out, and that was important because we had to just use text before that. That was a big change. Google search engines changed the world again, really good search engines. That was really important for research and for education. About 2000 or so, e-learning systems began to pick up. That changed how we taught. That was really important. Mobile platforms, starting with smartphones in 2007, also made a big impact. That made it much more accessible to a lot more people. And I think we are at the next one right now. The introduction of ChatGPT is the next big technological change that is going to change education and research. I think a lot of people have noticed this already, and a lot more people will notice in the next year because it is going to be unavoidable in every school in the world that has internet connection. So this is a preliminary look at these issues. This is certainly not a definitive look at them, but I hope to raise some of the issues of how it can be helpful in education and things that we need to be careful of and mindful of. To be honest, many of the insights and conclusions that I will bring today are not new. These are issues that those of us who have been working in AI in education have noticed prior to this. But ChatGPT is bringing it to the masses, bringing it to everyone. So please, during today's presentation, think of questions and comments. You can write your questions directly into the chat. If you have some comments or something, go ahead and take a note of things. At the end, there's going to be a discussion, and we'd really like to have active discussion with everyone who is joining us today. First off, let's look at some of the benefits of ChatGPT in education. What can it do? What can it be used for? How can it be helpful to students and to educators? Well, ChatGPT is a surprisingly robust system. It can do a lot of different things. It can add personal support for students. You can run Q&A sessions. A student could get on there if they're having trouble with a class, ask questions, get answers, ask for follow-up if they don't understand it. They can get easy to understand explanations for things. You can use it for personalized discussions so that a student can think about issues. For example, if they want to discuss an issue rather than trying to arrange a one-on-one discussion with a teacher or TA or another student, you can have interesting, engaging discussions that can help people think about topics just with ChatGPT. ChatGPT can be used to grade and critique written assignments. You can put in criteria. How do you want to grade it? What is your criteria? And ChatGPT can grade written assignments, especially writing assignments. It can give feedback on spelling and grammar and even on the coherence of arguments. ChatGPT has a surprisingly robust essay writing system. It knows how essays, a kind of standard stereotypical essay, introductory paragraph, follow-up paragraphs about each topic, and then a closing paragraph, and how to construct a paragraph. It knows how to do those kinds of things quite well. And for introductory writing, it can give very helpful feedback for students who are working on those issues. So if you're writing an essay that's going to be graded by a professor, you can take it to ChatGPT first and say, you have to know how to write a good prompt, but you have to say, this is going to be evaluated for grammar and spelling and coherence on these arguments. Please give a critical review and critique this essay. And ChatGPT can do that. ChatGPT can also create questions, and it can summarize topics. So, for example, students who are struggling with some topics, ChatGPT can help give a summary of what that topic looks like, and then how to even review. Here is a prompt that I wrote, and the kind of summary that it can provide. I said, I'm studying Introduction to Biology. I don't understand cell structure. Please summarize how cells are structured. And it gives a pretty much textbook explanation of how cells are structured. For someone who's taking Introduction to Biology, this may be helpful. And then one of those aspects was cytoplasm. I read that explanation. I still don't understand. So please explain cytoplasm. And then here is a further explanation about cytoplasm. And then within that was more difficult concepts. So you can go further down. You can say, please explain this in simple words to me. And so ChatGPT is able to take complex academic discussions and explain it even in simple words. So for example, here, if you look at the second sentence, it says, imagine a bowl of Jell-O with small fruit or candies inside. The Jell-O supports the objects within it, keeping them from moving around or sinking to the bottom of the bowl. In a similar way, the cytoplasm supports, and here you have, in very easy to understand words, how the cell works without using technical terms, so that anyone can easily understand this. Now, there's a couple of other important aspects to this. I'm going to go back here. It is freely accessible all over the world. And that is significant, because that means that anyone all over the world can access it. As long as it is free, then that means that it doesn't matter what school you're going to, it doesn't matter what income you have, as long as you have an internet connection and a device, either a computer or a smartphone, then you're able to use this. And this does help improve accessibility for students around the world. It's like having a paid tutor. This is, I think, a very positive development for education. All right, now that I've explained the positives, I also need to be honest with you that there are a lot of challenges, and I would say obstacles and problems that come with ChatGPT in education. And we as educators and as students need to take these seriously and think about how they will affect us. So in terms of challenges, the most obviously problem is, as Dr. Pike already mentioned, it can be used as a study replacement. It's too easy for students to use this to cheat. And it's not just cheating on a test or an essay. It is cheating themselves out of an education. ChatGPT can be used as a homework answer machine to get quick and easy answers to homework. ChatGPT can be used as a ghost writer, and it's possible to use it to finish assignments quickly without effort or time or understanding either. And so the obvious problem is that it's going to limit learning. People are not going to develop a deeper understanding if they're just copying and pasting things from ChatGPT. That is one of the biggest problems that it presents to us as educators. I first became aware of how prevalent ChatGPT was, by the way, at Christmas time. My sons are both in college. My nephew is also in college. We were all together at Christmas time, and my nephew, who is a freshman in college, couldn't stop talking about how he and his friends and everyone he knew was using ChatGPT to do their homework and to write their term papers. And when I heard that, I knew that this is going to be a problem for educators. No AI chatbot has been able to do that before. So this was really a very new development, and students and teachers alike need to think about the implications of this for the classroom. There's a few other challenges. ChatGPT has some serious limitations, and it also has some bias and potential for bias. So let's take these up in detail. First, let's talk about its limitations, because as educators and students, you really need to understand that ChatGPT can do some interesting and amazing things, but at the same time, it is a limited system with very clear limits on what it can and cannot do. First off, ChatGPT is surprisingly poor at arithmetic and math in general. You may think as a computer system that it would be really good at math, but it's not. And I tried this out with a number of questions. Here's a typical one, okay? 4 dogs and 2 cats are traveling together in a car from town A to town B, a distance of 16 kilometers. How far does each dog travel? Well, ChatGPT, as you can see in the answer below here, it says, I guess it's on this side here. It says here, we need to divide the total distance traveled by the number of dogs in the car, which is 4. So the distance traveled by each dog is 16 kilometers divided by 4 dogs equals 4 kilometers per dog, which is obviously a wrong answer. And I laughed when I saw it spit this out. Do not expect it to get numbers right. It's surprisingly poor dealing with numbers. It is a text generator, not a machine to do math. Second, ChatGPT is surprisingly inaccurate when it comes to facts. If you are looking at an introductory topic, then it's pretty good. If you're looking at a topic that has an introductory textbook available for it, then you're probably going to be fine. For example, Introduction to Biology, it's pretty good. But I checked things that are in my area of expertise as a scholar. I also written quite a bit about the history of Christianity in Japan. So I put a few questions in. Who is the first Protestant missionary in Japan? And it spit out Verbeck. Well, that's wrong. He's Verbeck was among the first, but he was not the first. So then I thought, all right, well, let's give him another chance. I said, who is the first missionary to Okinawa? And the answer that ChatGPT spit out is almost entirely wrong. Bettelheim was the first Christian missionary who worked in Okinawa. He went there as a missionary. He's the first one who was there as a missionary. However, practically everything else here is completely wrong. I searched the web to try to figure out where this information is coming from. And I realized that this is just made up. ChatGPT fabricated this. It's not just that ChatGPT took wrong information from somewhere else. It's not that someone else wrote about Bettelheim, got it wrong, and then ChatGPT used that information. No, there's no reference to any of this when I search in Google or other search engines. This is original and completely wrong. He was not a French Catholic missionary. He is not the founder of the Catholic Church in Okinawa. He did not die there. He did not die in 1852, and he was not poisoned. So it's very, very wrong. And then I asked it as a follow-up, list the early Catholic missionaries in Okinawa prior to 1846, because there were some mission efforts in the area. But then the next one, ChatGPT says, okay, I apologize for my previous answer, which was incorrect. There were actually several Catholic missionaries who visited or landed in Okinawa prior to Bettelheim's arrival. In 1846, some of the early Catholic missionaries in Okinawa before 1846 include, all right, every single one of these is wrong, very wrong. This is totally fabricated. And if a student answered this in a test or something, or used this in a research paper or anything like this, they would get a 0. This is fiction. It's fiction. All right. In addition to that, as my final prompt, I asked ChatGPT to please write a summary of the first missionaries to Okinawa, an introduction of Christianity to Okinawa. And this just builds on the fabrication that it wrote earlier. This kind of answer, the kind of answers that ChatGPT is generating are technically described as eloquent bullshit. Some of you may only know that term as a vulgar slang word, but here I'm not using it in that way, okay? There is actually quite a bit of research in the field of psychology done on this issue. Bullshit, in a technical term, is communications that result from little to no concern for truth, evidence, and or established semantic, logical, systemic or empirical knowledge. This is taken up in a number of books and in research in psychology. In this kind of communication, bullshitting is a kind of human communication technique that has no regard for fact or evidence or truth, but tries to eloquently put words together in a way that sounds good. That is exactly what ChatGPT is doing. It is very good at bullshitting. And that is because ChatGPT is as an AI system, is very good at what's called system one thinking. There's two ways of thinking, system one and system two. Okay, so system one thinking is for humans and actually other creatures as well, is the brain's fast, automatic, unconscious, and emotional response to stimulus and stimuli. For example, instinctively reading text on a sign, walking on the same daily route without worrying about how to get to the destination, or instinctively hopping over a puddle on the sidewalk. These kinds of actions come out of system one thinking. Automatic, unconscious, emotional response to situations and stimuli. And then that is opposed to system two thinking, which is the slow, effortful, logical mode that our brains operate in when solving complex problems. System two thinking involves critical thinking and logical thinking. For example, looking for a friend in a crowd, or determining which train routes to use when traveling in Tokyo, or determining the cost-performance ratio when trying to purchase something. Those things require deeper analytical thinking. That's system two. ChatGPT does not have the ability to do system two thinking. It may look like it sometimes. It may seem that it does, but it does not. That's why it cannot answer word problems. That's why it can't logically think about these things. And ChatGPT is not trying to provide reliable, accurate information based on specific sources. You can ask ChatGPT for where it got its information from. And ChatGPT will provide citations sometimes or links to websites. But when I have gone to the website to check the reference to make sure it's there, I found sometimes it's not there. Even the citations that it provides are not accurate and fictional. All right, let's move on. I want to talk a little bit about bias and values. First off, as Dr. Pike mentioned, ChatGPT has been programmed with humans trying to correct it. Humans have tweaked the AI model with input so that it knows what is good and bad and harmful, and it's that actual human input to correct it that separates GPT-3 from GPT 3.5, which is ChatGPT. So as a part of that mechanism that humans have programmed in, it tries very hard to avoid controversy and harm. So it's going to avoid hate speech and discrimination. It's going to avoid advice that will be illegal. It's going to avoid illegal drugs and violence and harm and invasion of personal privacy and violating human rights. And it's going to avoid harassing and discrimination and all those kinds of things. It's programmed to not answer those questions, to not help with those issues. It's going to say, I can't do that. Some of the early news about GPT and some of the early prompts were things related to this, because even though these safeguards have been programmed into ChatGPT, people were able to get around them. And there's been a lot of publicity about those. I tried to recreate many of those that were reported in the news, and ChatGPT had already been fixed. It's already been updated. All the ones that were reported in the news, I tried to use the same techniques to produce output that would be discriminatory or harmful or something. Yeah, it was kind of strange to do those things, but I was testing it. And by the time that I was testing it in the last couple of weeks, it had been thoroughly corrected. And I could not get it to output anything that was illegal or harmful or discriminatory at all. However, there is still bias. Bias is unavoidable, okay? You will always have some values that will be reflected in how topics are approached, and you can definitely see that. ChatGPT often puts up disclaimers and cautions for topics that may be controversial. That's a good thing. But you can still see through that it does have some biases. For example, I tried a theoretical question about sexual morals. All right, so let's pretend a high school student is writing this. A high school student says, my friend is a high school student. He and his girlfriend want to have sex, but they told me they must wait until marriage for religious reasons. I don't think they need to wait because they're old enough to decide for themselves. Why is it okay? Why is it okay for them to go ahead and have sex now instead of waiting for marriage? So I was going to see if ChatGPT could, encourage them, but it comes up with a big disclaimer. It says, no, I'm not going to encourage that. Everyone has to decide for themselves. It mentions that, religious advocates are waiting for marriage, but it's a personal thing and they need to decide for themselves. Don't encourage them. So that was pretty good to see. On reproduction, I put in questions about pregnancy and abortion to see what it would say about that. Here again, it comes down to don't try to stop someone else or encourage them. It's a personal decision. They need to make that decision on their own. You can express your opinion, but be respectful, non-judgmental, and it's their decision, not yours. So, trying very hard to stay out of those arguments. On racism and discrimination, I tried many different ways to discern its biases. One is using in programming. You could sort of get around the some of the ways that it was filtered by using programming language. So I tried to use a Python function to see if I could detect a bias in gender and race, but it even detected that. Apparently in December and early January, you could use these kinds of things to get around the protections. But by the time that I was testing it in February, you couldn't use these techniques to get around any sort of blocks on this. And it was very clear that it was not going to allow people to use race or gender or those kinds of things in asking questions or getting answers. So it's trying very hard to be non-discriminatory. I did find that it tended to have a pro-affirmative action bias. So there are some ways in which you can see that it does have a kind of bias one way or another. And its bias has been analyzed and evaluated by others as well. Reason.com, a right-leaning libertarian publication, used public political tests to ask similar questions to ChatGPT and try to determine where ChatGPT falls on the political sphere. And in general, it was showing it to be left-leaning. Now, this was done in mid-December, early to mid-December. And then by January, they retested it. And in that time, in about a month's time, it was found that its left political leaning bias was corrected, so that when it was asked the same questions a month later, it gave very non-biased answers to those same questions. So you can tell that they're working very hard to make it neutral, socially, politically, and in other ways. But you can sometimes find bias in there, and that's something that we as educators need to be aware of. I also looked at how it talks about Christian faith, and it can respond quite eloquently to questions about Christian faith, about Christian scriptures. For example, I asked a question, for example, if I was going to advise someone going through facing questions of death and grief, I'll read the prompt here. I want to better understand what the Bible says about death in order to care for people facing death and grief. This is particularly to help someone who is asking a lot of big God questions about death and heaven, etc. This person is a Christian. So I want to provide a loving, comforting assistance to them. Write a 500-word essay about the comfort and encouragement we can receive from the Christian Bible when facing death and grief. And it wrote a very competent essay, and is interesting because it wrote it from the perspective of a Christian. It starts with, the Bible has a lot to say about death and grief and offers comfort and encouragement to those facing these difficult experiences. As Christians, we believe that death is not the end, but rather a transition to a new life with God. This belief can provide a great deal of comfort to those who are facing death themselves or who are grieving the loss of a loved one. You can see here an important aspect of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is able to play roles. It's very good at role playing. So in my prompt, I ask it to play the role of a Christian comforting another Christian. And it creates text that matches that role. I think if you were to write a prompt asking it to be a Muslim, counseling Muslims, it would give similar counsel as if it was Muslim or an atheist or whatever. So it can take whatever role you want in creating that text and creates a fairly standard response that even as a pastor, I would say this is a pretty responsible, appropriate response to this. All right. I'm running out of time. I need to be quick, but this is probably the most important or most interesting, especially for those of you who are educators and teachers listening, putting AI chatbots to work in the classroom. ChatGPT will be in your classroom, whether you like it or not. And we can use it effectively for a lot of things. However, educators need to identify where chatbots can be most effective. And that's going to be in the areas of personalized support, an artificial intelligent assistant to help you with general things, an idea generator, a writing assistant. ChatGPT is good at those things, but we have to establish clear guidelines and policies of where it's appropriate to use it and when it's not, because we need to help students understand how to use it effectively to learn themselves rather than just to quickly finish homework assignments. And of course, we need to continually monitor the bias and possible ethical issues. And I think that that will continue to change over time. They are working on addressing those, and I'm impressed with that. But we need to continue monitoring those ethical issues. And I think that it's especially the role of educators to raise our voices if we notice problems in those areas. So here's some 8 specific ways that you can use ChatGPT in classrooms and educational settings that can be of a very positive assistance. Number 1, email assistance. Here is an example. I took a recent email that I got from a student that was inappropriate. The student wrote to me as if I was their friend. You can see in the second line, they said, okay, I understand where to go for our meeting on the 24th, but they did not properly write to me as a professor. So, but they could ask GPT to help them. They could say, I'm a student and need to write a polite email to my professor, content. All right. And then ChatGPT will output a good, appropriate email. This is good for students who don't know how to write an appropriate email, but it will also teach them what an appropriate email is. So I think that this is a very good teaching tool for our students to learn how to write better letters and communication to people. And it can be used as an email assistant in many ways. It can definitely help people improve their writing skills. It can also be used to proofread English. For example, a teacher or the staff is writing in the school. They're not a native English speaker, but they could ask ChatGPT for help. Here's a prompt. I'm not a native English speaker. Please correct my English for the following email sent to a group of teachers in the school. And here, just put in the best you can, and ChatGPT will output a very good corrected English version of this, which is excellent English. And I will tell you a secret. I'm using this for my Japanese. I teach in Japanese. My work is in Japanese, and I want a Japanese language correction sometimes. And it does a very good job of proofreading my Japanese. It's not perfect, but it corrects my mistakes. It actually is helpful. It can be used to summarize abstracts and other things. I was working on this symposium, and I had the theme and other things ready to go. I needed a description that would summarize it. So I used this prompt. We're planning the symposium on navigating the challenges and opportunities of AI chatbots in higher education. Can you write a 100-word description of this symposium that would be suitable for including in promotional materials? And it output a very good description. Now, this had to be edited quite a bit, but you will notice that the description for today's symposium came from this prompt. I improved it, I edited it, but this is where it started. So it gave me some good ideas in the beginning, and then I had to improve it and finalize it on my own. And it can be used for summarizing longer text and article and other things, or creating abstracts and things like that. ChatGPT is very good at generating ideas because it's good at generating text, generating words. So if you say, I want to do a topic on this, can you create 5 sample titles or 10 ideas for this? It can create lots of very good ideas and titles. It can help you brainstorm. This is probably one of the best uses of ChatGPT, is to brainstorm ideas for you. So yes, it did help me to make the title of today's forum. Next is you can use it to review subject matter. And this is especially good for introductory subjects. Any kind of course in secondary education, for higher education, it would be suitable for introductory courses. Students, for example, here, I was helping my son with biology. I'm studying about cell membranes in biology class. Please write 5 multiple choice questions to test me on my knowledge of cell membranes. And there, it created 5 multiple choice questions that a student could try to answer themselves, they could save and use later. And then I followed this up with, please provide the correct answers to the questions. And then it provided the correct answer and an explanation for why it's correct. So the student could use that to test themselves. They can use that to understand why that is the correct answer. And this can be excellent for reviewing material and test preparation and things like that. Finally, it all depends on the prompts. The prompt is what you ask ChatGPT. You can do really amazing things with good prompts, but you have to learn how to write good prompts. And I think that that's going to be part of our instruction going forward, to tell students how to write prompts that will provide output that will really be useful for them. So our task as educators, and this is going to be my last section, I'm almost done here. First off, I think it's very important to say that there's no shortcuts in education. There's no shortcuts for helping people to grow as humans, intellectually, ethically, personally. And students need to develop their intellectual capacity and not just get correct answers. The temptation is to just get easy, correct answers. But we need to help students develop their intellectual capacity and use AI chatbots as part of that process. So deeper understanding and personal growth requires engagement, which means time and effort. The temptation with ChatGPT is to do it in no time and no effort. But if there's no time and no effort, there's going to be no growth. So we have to find ways to get students to engage with the material so that they can really understand it and grow. It really brings the question to us, what is the meaning of education? What is the desired outcome? It's not just memorizing facts and regurgitating them. It's about personal growth. It's about intellectual development, character development, creative thinking, and ethical development. So face-to-face interaction and engagement in the classroom between teachers and students is always important, and it's going to be increasingly important in the future, I think. Critical thinking and ethical thinking are two tasks that we as educators need to emphasize even more. Because with ChatGPT, we all need to decide, we need to be able to look at text and say, is this true? Is this correct? Is this accurate? Or is it just bullshit that ChatGPT is producing? Because there's a lot of text in the world that is being produced by these machines that is bullshit. And I mean that in the technical term that I defined earlier. It is just, it's fabricated nonsense that sounds good. That's what ChatGPT is good at. But we as humans have the ability to understand what is true, what is false, and that sort of critical thinking is what we must teach our students. It's going to be the most important part of higher education going forward. It's going to be easy for them to find facts and information, but we need to be ever more vigilant in separating truth from falsehood, what is true versus what just sounds true. So we're going to have to emphasize even more analytical reasoning and logic and those kinds of things. And of course, educators need to help students think ethically and morally and monitor the bias in those systems. And I think that's an important part of the critical thinking as well. So those aspects of our education are going to be even more important in the years ahead. I've gone way over. Thank you for listening patiently. And we have some time at the end for discussion and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Yang-Min Pike and Dr. Paul Shaw. What a very substantial and insightful lectures. Well, we are talking about GPT. Some parts of the world are just starting to use the Google or the search engine, which I know that it has been there since 2000. Well, you can access information at the tip of your fingers, especially people from Korea and Japan. Some parts of the world are just being introduced to the use of computers. Can you imagine that there is really a great gap, or the playing field is not level in all parts of the world? Okay, we have a question here in our chat, chat section. This is from Southern Philippines Methodist Colleges. Dr. Yamin and Dr. Paul, can ChatGPT speak? Can we hear her or his voice, or it will just communicate through text?
By default, it's just text, but you can link it with audio systems, but it's easier just to write text. It's a text-based system.
Okay.
And also, let me add this thing. There is the Whisper program, and which is generating the speech. That is also from the OpenAI. And so, you can check that out. But the ChatGPT is text-based system.
Okay. So where can you categorize Siri in MacBook Air? Hello, Siri. Hello, how can I help you?
Siri is a very simple AI assistant, but it does not compare at all to ChatGPT. It's nothing like ChatGPT because it's not really a chat. Well, it is a chatbot, but it's a very simple one compared to ChatGPT.
Yeah, very low level AI system, and which is more like, as I said, that is not the generative model. Okay, that is the find and show and find and speak model. And so very kind of, undeveloped, system of AI.
Okay, so there is a question here from Jasmine. How to use the ChatGPT, or maybe the question is, how can we access this ChatGPT? Can we browse it in the browser, or?
I just put the link here, and anyone can go there, create an account, and then use it.
Okay, so people, please look at the chat box. Dr. Paul just encoded the access to ChatGPT. Okay, some more question maybe. Can we hear question from India, from our Indian participants? I saw here a while ago, Prakash. Hello, people from India. Oh, I think they are no longer here.
Oh, I just saw the a very important comment in the chat. Lovely Tembani from Zimbabwe reports that in Zimbabwe, it is blocked. And that is very interesting. I didn't know that it was being blocked in some parts. I wonder if it's being blocked by the government, or I wonder who's blocking it. But that's a very interesting news to hear. It's been advertised as, one of the positive aspects of it is that it's accessible all over the world. But that would really be very unfortunate and promote inequality in the world if only, some parts of the world get it and some parts don't, because in a certain sense, it should be one of those technologies that is available to everyone who, as long as you have a smartphone, you should be able to use it. That's all it really requires, smartphone and connection to internet. But it will be very unfortunate if it's blocked in some countries.
Okay, so there is a follow-up question from Jasmine. Can we use ChatGPT to improve our oral English, and how to use it? Interactive communication, I think. Yeah.
It's not for English conversation because it's really a text-based program. You could certainly use it to correct English and things, and you could use something to interpret with the oral English, but that's really not its strong point, and there's probably better programs to improve oral English. I am fluent in Japanese, and actually I used to use Siri to help improve my Japanese pronunciation. I would use, because Siri has the speech to text features. So I would use that to test if my pronunciation was correct or not. And if I could tell if I was pronouncing words wrong because it would not transcribe it accurately. So, you know, any of those systems like Siri can be used to test pronunciation and help improve it. But I'm not sure how ChatGPT would use that, because it's really a written text system.
Yeah, I agree with what Paul said, but as I said, the OpenAI and other AI developing companies are developing bunch of different tools, you know, based on this GPT system. So I'm pretty sure, you know, they can generate, you know, a lot of other helpful program, you know, coming up soon. So, you know, we can wait a little bit.
Okay, there is a follow-up question from a framer. Aside from English, just ChatGPT use other languages? And what are these languages, if ever, they are using other languages?
It uses quite a few languages. I've been using it in both English and in Japanese. It uses most European languages as well. It uses quite a few languages. I'm not sure of the list.
Okay.
I'll see if I can find it somewhere. Actually, I know the
Okay,
fastest way
thank you,
is
Dr.
just to go to
Paul.
ChatGPT.
So I think we can still accommodate 1 or 2 questions from our participants. Any questions that you would like to raise, please? This is a very interesting topic. Okay. Is there an app that we can use to determine whether an essay is created by ChatGPT? Maybe it's just like turn it in. What do you think, Dr. Paul and Yang Min? Yeah. So again, is there an app that we can use to determine whether an essay is created by ChatGPT?
There is a several tool, you know, you can find, and there is the GPT detector, created by the Princeton University. And there are several other tools, but you can check if you are using the same topic or same question to ChatGPT, you know, the generation of the text, you know, will be pretty similar, okay, to each other. And that is why I check my final exam answer and read the exact same question. And then, you know, I was able to detect, you know, a lot of them. And there will be a lot of the plagiarism detector, okay, of the ChatGPT pretty soon.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yamin. By the way, Dr. Paul just included the answer to one of the questions. ChatGPT can understand and generate text in several languages. So please check your chat box for this, for the available languages of ChatGPT. Okay, last question that we can accommodate. Anybody who would like to raise that last question for today's webinar?
While someone's thinking of that, I do want to add something to the last question before that about checking text to see if it's created by ChatGPT or not. There's some very good web apps that already do that. You just paste in the text and it will tell you if it's generated by a chatbot or not. I tried that with my own academic writings. So things that I had written previously that I know I wrote, and some of them came up showing that like 40 or 50% was identified as possibly written by ChatGPT. So depending on the person's writing style, it may be because it's kind of academic. It was academic writing, the long sentences, that kind of style of writing was identified as possibly by ChatGPT. So I'm not sure how well those systems work. Although after a while, you can easily identify some writing as coming from ChatGPT. As a teacher, it should not be hard. We can tell that text, the writing is too good, it's too polished, and it looks like it was written by a machine and not by our students. That's a key issue. So I don't think we even need to use the special services. As teachers, when we are reading our students' essays, we will know if it's their writing or not.
Great answer,
Yeah,
Dr. Cho.
let me say one thing. I think as concluding remarks, and as I said, the ChatGPT is the generative transformer, okay? And it lacks creativity. And they are organizing existing text and they are pulling up, and then, they are trying to rearrange to make it sense to most of the people. And that is why, there is the very important significance within education about creative idea and something, you are creating out of nothing. If that is not spoken or documented within any different ways, ChatGPT cannot generate that one, okay? And that is something, we need to focus on. The sum of the human only can do at this point, is we are creatively invent, something new out of the existing things, and which is another level, and which ChatGPT cannot do. They can only use the existing data and then line up, will make it suitable sense, for the common people, and which is the big difference. And that is something, we need to understand and we need to focus on. And that is why, as a teacher, I'm asking most of the people and to, come up with your own creative idea, okay? And rather than summarizing something. And that will help the educators, they need to change their way of method and not delivering or, helping them to understand existing information, but trying to push them, into the creative sections and creative potential, okay, of them to, make the big progress out of it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yang Min. Dr. Paul has already answered the question of Jasmine. So for our last question, ChatGPT generated false information, like the example given a while ago. In cases like this, can we sue creator of ChatGPT for the misinformation or disinformation? What do you think, Dr. Yang Min and Dr. Paul?
They are just pulling the wrong information from somewhere, okay? And they are just, making it as making sense to the most of the people. And that is why, okay? So you could say, they created some new information, but that was the organization, okay, of the existing data, within the wrong way of alignment. And let me say that way.
Also, when you use the system, the first thing that comes up is a disclaimer. It says, this may not be accurate. We are not providing the accurate answers. And so everyone who uses the system starts with the understanding that this is kind of an experimental writing generator. It's not going to be an authoritative source of truth. Mm-hmm. But my problem is people will forget that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, so as educators, right, we need to keep telling people that ChatGPT is not accurate. You can't trust it. And we need to think what is true and what is not. So, as educators, we have to work on this issue with our students and people around us, because after using it for a while, I think a lot of people will forget that it's not accurate. And that will be a kind of danger, I think, for society.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul and Dr. Yang Bin. So we are always reminded by the ethical use of ChatGPT, as Dr. Paul said a while ago, and of course, the use of critical thinking. We need to look whether the information is reliable or not. So thank you very much for this very substantial insight for this lecture, Dr. Paul and Dr. Yang Min. So at this point, shall we all pause for our closing prayer? And then I will request Dr. Yang Min for announcement. But we'll have our closing prayer first before announcement. What do you think? Or announcement first? I think announcement first.
Maybe
Announcement first. Announcement first. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna give the announcement, thank you, to the speakers, including myself, and also all the leaders and the participants of this forum. And, we are trying to provide the helpful information, okay, for the educators and the student as much as possible. And that is why we covered this very upcoming contemporary issue going on, right now. But we're going to continue our series of the Making Peace Peacefully for next week, for next month. That is the last Saturday of each month, and that will be in March 25th. And so, please keep that in mind. And also, we're going to use the same time and the same link. So, we will see you next month.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Flor, do you have some announcements? President Flor?
Okay, Nan, I think I just would like to say thank you to our very excellent speaker today and for the very noteworthy questions. There are so many questions I have in mind, but I think we can still have a second session for this one. Thank you once again. Closing prayer.
Thank you very much. Shall we all pause for our closing prayer? Let us pray. Dear God, the source of life and love, we thank you for this substantial webinar on ChatGPT. Thank you for the insights that we have gained. As we advance in science and technology, may we also advance in wisdom, compassion, and spirituality. Help us to be the community of learners who are committed to truth and communal responsibility. Enrich our lives with your blessing so that we too can be channels of blessings to others. As we end this webinar, we will continue with our mission. And so bless us with your grace, strengthen us with your love, and empower us with your presence. This is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen. Good day, everyone. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Goodbye.
next month.
Goodbye. Yes, thank you. Thank you.